Hello and welcome into the Recruiting Blitz. I am Greg Smith, Senior Recruiting Analyst here at Inside Nebraska. I am joined once again by digital content extraordinaire and staff writer Jansen Coburn. I am back from vacation. I don't know if you can tell, I got a little sun. I'm feeling good. I'm nice and relaxed. But Jansen, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, Greg. I also just got back from vacation. I'm back in Lincoln, and they're destroying a building right by me. So if it's a little loud, I apologize. But yeah, I'm doing good.
It's fine. I got construction on my block as well, and so it's fine. We're just gonna roll with the construction noises. It'll be fun background noises. But I'm glad you're back in the good life. I am happy to be back in the good life as well, and we're ready to get rolling with another episode of Recruiting Blitz. So Jansen, what do you got for me?
Yeah, right off the bat, Greg, they've got a commitment in the class of 2024, and it seemed like it moved pretty quick. Roger Gradney out of Texas. Right off the bat, what are your thoughts on the commitment and sort of your early impressions?
Yeah, it's always fun when there's a commitment when I'm on vacation because then our subscribers on the Insiders board say I need to stay on vacation to continue to help Nebraska get commits. Zach was not having that. I tried to float that idea by him, but I like the commitment. It did move very quickly. Like it was one of those situations, and it is a rare one, but it does happen these days where a guy commits really quickly without having been on campus. I generally say that once, and especially for Nebraska, once a kid gets on campus, Nebraska like exponentially increases their chances of landing kids because they do such a good job with those on-campus presentations, and it comes up all the time where guys say that it's different on campus than they thought. But for a guy to commit this quickly without having been on campus is a really good sign for a couple of things. One, the ability for the staff to build relationships with kids quickly. Two, the ability for those Texas connections to pay off, right? It's not really a huge shock that the first commit for the 2024 class for Nebraska is a Texan, considering all of the efforts that they're putting into recruiting that state, being down there for coaches clinics, how many people on staff, both on and off the field, have connections to Texas. That's no surprise. But Gradney as a prospect quickly, I like him. I think that he's a kid that it's funny. Like people were kind of acting. I was kind of like gauging the kind of reaction while I was gone about this. And people were kind of acting like he was like this really hidden diamond in the rough. But he's a high 3-star on Rivals. I think on every other service, he's a 4-star, probably going to get bumped up to a 4-star on Rivals as well. Once he has kind of a healthy season, he's really fast, like most Matt Rhule recruits. And he's a versatile guy that can help you in the return game and on defense. I predict right now that people are gonna at the beginning here, they've acted like, oh, like who's this kid Nebraska's taking? By the time we get through his senior season, there'll be other schools that come in and try and poach him, and Nebraska fans will be wondering if they can hold on to him. I'm going to put that prediction out right now.
Yeah, he's really interesting because he's kind of your prototypical Matt Rhule recruit. I remember you saying we could probably make a soundbite all the times we talk about track stars
Right.
that they recruit, and then you and Nick Harris did an episode talking about over under on Texas recruits, and so right off the bat they got a Texas recruit, so he checks both of those boxes. He actually, when he committed, I'll pull up the quote here. I want to ask you about this, Greg. I thought it was interesting. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, but when he was asked why he committed, um, he kind of regurgitated a lot of what Matt Rhule was saying about what his pitch would be to recruits. And that was something to the effect that they want to develop them as players on and off the field. And I thought that was cool just to see that what Matt is telling to the media and he's also telling the recruits, we are then seeing that reflected back on recruits. And it just a bigger overall picture things. It seems like Matt's doing what he's saying he's going to do, whether that be his recruiting pitch or with whatever else. It seems like their actions are matching their words. So I don't know if that caught your eye. Let me pull up the quote real quick. He said, I'm committing to Nebraska because I love the energy the coaches give. I love how they want to build a relationship with the players, that they want you for your personality and they want to get to know you, and that they want to develop you and improve your skills to be successful. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think your first point, I think, is dead on. I think that's something. I really do. I think it's something that you're having kind of this synergy of the message that they're putting out, and it's between. I think it's really cool actually to have a recruit kind of regurgitate some of those things because that Matt Rhule is saying to us in the media, because that means to me that Matt Rhule is kind of the same guy to everyone, right? Is that he's actually genuine, and what do we always say? We've been hearing this now since they kind of took over. Is that, man, how genuine this staff is and how relatable they are. We've seen them kind of out in the community. We've seen them at different sporting events for the Huskers, like all of that stuff that they had talked about and started doing, they continued to do, and has been really neat to see. So to see a recruit like right away regurgitate that and say it basically word for word is really good. And I would take it a step further and say that I don't know, it's not just Matt Rhule and the recruits, it's also all the assistants, right? We've now heard from every assistant coach plus the strength coach, Corey Campbell, and they all are on the same page. I joke with our football guy Steve Marek about this all the time. I say that it sounds like this staff is in the same meetings, and it's tongue in cheek, but it's legit at the same time, right? Like that's what it sounds like, that these guys are on the same page and they're all pulling in the same direction. Even when you hear the quotes from Trev Alberts now, like, and I know some people caught him at kind of the Team Jack Gala and those sorts of things, like they all sound like they're speaking the same language, which I think is a great sign for things moving forward, because you do want everybody pulling in the same direction. But no, I definitely think that's something. I think that's a good call out by you.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if the on the field results reflect what they're saying they're going to do too. Because I know we heard him talk about running the football and all that stuff that Husker fans
position
love,
switches and all sorts of stuff that they've talked about. Yeah,
so it'll be interesting. But more on some of the 2024 recruiting. There's a certain in-state player whose recruitment has exploded while you and I were on our sort of vacation the last couple of weeks, and that's Carter Nelson, of course. He got a lot of really impressive offers in a short amount of time. And I think people already knew what kind of athlete he was and that he was a big time prospect, but this is just sort of affirmed that. So what are your thoughts on all the new offers he's gotten and the attention he's getting?
Man, first of all, it's really cool. Like, I think that it is really neat to see a kid in Nebraska, especially an 8-man player, like getting this sort of attention and this sort of explosion. And it's kind of fun to see kind of how this can kind of snowball, right? As you see, he had some really good offers prior to this like big explosion. Like, obviously Nebraska had offered him already, and like Notre Dame had been heavily involved, and like many others. But this kind of recent slew of like SEC offers and like just everywhere else has been really cool. I think I saw a thing where like it was like Carter said it was the first time that Nick Saban had watched an 8-man player, like stuff like that. Like, it's just really crazy to see, and it's pretty cool to see that sort of thing for a guy in state get that kind of recognition. And to me, and I've said this before about kind of going back now a handful of years, or more than a handful of years almost, to Cam Jurgens' recruitment. And then the year after that, I believe, or 2 years after that, with Chris Hickman and Nick Henrich and those guys, when there were like 5 guys that got offered in state and committed. What ends up happening sometimes in those situations, I think, is a trickle-down effect, where you end up having a bunch of, like, you have a couple of big-time recruits that a lot of colleges come in, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh, there's actually a bunch of talent here in Nebraska. And so you've actually just continued to see year after year. Now, not everybody has been on the level of Carter Nelson, but every year now you have guys with multiple Power 5 offers in the state, and that's not slowing down. You see it with not just Carter, but other guys in this 24 class. So his explosion, I think, has been a long time coming, but also a testament to kind of some of the big time, especially track numbers that he's been able to put up. And I can read some of them off to you because I actually wrote them down before we came over here to do this. It's like he's running 11.05 100-meter dash. He's a 7-foot high jumper, 13.8 pole vault. He's obviously a stud in basketball as well. Like, his athleticism, and that's at 6'5", 215 and growing, right? He's going to continue to put on muscle. His athleticism, and then size athleticism combination with that speed, it's something. Like, you can tell just this athletic profile why he's that big time of a prospect, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see where he goes from here.
Now, considering all of those recruits that are part of the 2024 class that Nebraska's thereafter, if Dylan Raiola wasn't a factor in this class, right, and Nebraska needed a new priority number 1 recruit, do you think it'd be Carter Nelson?
Man, it's so hard to say that. Well, I was going to say it's hard to say a tight end would be that number one guy, but we saw that happen with Fedoni a couple of years ago. So yes, I'm going to say that Carter Nelson would be the number one guy, because here's the thing that would happen. And now that I say this out loud, I'm picturing this, right? You've got an in-state guy that is going to end up being like, it's going to be fascinating to see where Carter Nelson's rating is. I was going to say he's going to end up being like in the conversation for 5-star, especially once he continues to put up once he gets back on the football field, and if he decides to go to camps this summer. You have that. Plus him being in state, you would want Matt Rhule would want to kind of make a statement by going after the big in-state kid that everybody wants. Like, yeah, I have now talked myself into Carter Nelson would be that number one guy if we lived in a world where Dylan Raiola did not exist. Even at a tight end, I think that he would be that guy for Matt Rhule, which is going to make this fascinating because it's not. There is a gap. Like, Dylan is the number one guy, and then there's a gap before you get to everyone else. But boy, I think that Husker fans really, really obviously want Nebraska to land Carter Nelson. And I would also, we talked about Matt Rhule and him kind of, doing, putting into practice what he said he was going to do, right? Before Carter Nelson kind of exploded here recently, remember what Matt Rhule did. Remember during that last official visit weekend, they took time during that visit weekend to take a quick jet up to Ainsworth to be able to see Carter Nelson play basketball. There were pictures all over social media. So they already knew that he was going to be a big deal, or an even bigger deal, and they've been laying the groundwork there. So kudos to them for that too, and having that foresight.
Yeah, and I was gonna leave this question out, but I'm gonna throw it in and ask you anyways. We talked about this before recording. Considering how much of a priority both Carter and Dylan seem to be for the staff, do you think it would sting more for Nebraska and the fans alike to miss out on Carter Nelson or to miss out on Dylan Raiola?
Man, it has to be Dylan, because he's the number one player in the country, a legacy. His dad's name's in the stadium, his uncle's on staff, all of the attention that has gone into that, and the effort that has gone into being able to recruit him by Nebraska. So I think that Dylan it would hurt more. But you could justify that, given he's the number one player in the country and he's got every option in the world, can go wherever he wants to, versus a true in-state guy that you really want to be able to build your team around. So it would hurt badly for Carter Nelson as well. But Dylan, I think, is the pick on that one. But boy, both of them, I know you guys really want them both.
I have to agree with you on that one. So now, kind of sticking on the in-state players in the class of 2024 in Nebraska, who do you think is most likely out of all those guys to commit first? Or we're assuming that there's going to be someone that commits to Nebraska from Nebraska. If it happens most years more than not. So yeah, who would you predict is the first player in the state that commits?
Man, it's funny because they have 7 offers right now to in-state players, and any of them would be really good gets at this point, whether you're talking about Davon Hall, the wide receiver from Bell West, or his counterpart Isaiah McMorris. Danny Kalen, I'm going to put to the side a little bit at quarterback just because of Raiola and all of the talk there. Caleb Benning at Omaha West Side, man, Carter Nelson, who we've already talked about, Ashton Murphy at Elkhorn South. Boy, it's tough because I could see a couple of those guys. I'm going to go with another legacy, though, and say that Caleb Benning ends up being the first guy out of that group to end up pulling the trigger for Nebraska. And I do think that they're going to get multiple of those guys from the state. I do not think they're going to end up going 7 for 7. That's going to, first of all, it's going to be impossible if they land Dylan. They're not going to then get Danny Kalen. But it's also the competition for those guys is really tough this year. But I do think that Matt Rhule and staff will hold their own. I think that Caleb Benning will be the first guy from in-state to commit to the team.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them, like you said, to get all 7. I think, is it Caleb Pryfrom? It seems like his recruitment, he's had a really strong relationship with the Iowa coaches. And then obviously with Daniel Kalen, he's kind of on the back burner at the moment. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, and I think that the Caleb Pryfrom situation is one worth watching too, because I don't think you're right. And then and he told our Iowa guys here at Rivals that, those guys made a really good impression on him. But I do want to throw a caveat in there is that impression was made while Nebraska was going through all of their turmoil, right? That was happening last year. As Scott Frost was being fired and as Mickey Joseph was the interim and no one knew whether he would stay on, then we know that he did not. And then Matt Rhule came in and those guys kind of had to start over. I'll let Matt Rhule and his staff take their chances of taking the swing at Caleb. I think they'll be Caleb Pie for him. I think that they'll be able to get back in there. But yeah, the Iowa offensive line situation is always a tough one to try to bust into because they do well with that position. So we'll see. I think they still have a chance there.
Yeah, they're mega consistent with O-line, so it's understandable why
they're very
interested.
good at that.
Now, we saved the best for last, most interesting for last. And of course, all the Dylan Raiola news that popped up out of the weekend, kind of unexpected. It was unexpected for me. I don't know if it was unexpected for you, if there was some rumblings about what was going on there. Greg, what did just take place over the weekend? That was quite a spectacle and a social media
yeah,
explosion.
It definitely was. Yeah, it did. That's a great way to put it. Okay, so I will peel the curtain back here. So I'm on vacation, right? I was on my cruise, for those of you who don't know, because I told the board, down in the South Caribbean. And Thursday of last week, I had actually spoken with Dominic Raiola, and we were talking because I was asking him about the Georgia situation. And like, I've heard these rumors, like people are blowing up my phone about this, about a potential visit to Georgia being canceled. And I flat out asked him, is that true? He said no, he didn't know where those came from, and that Georgia visit was still on. And essentially, the only two visits that they knew for sure that were happening in March was the Georgia visit and the Nebraska visit, right? And that had widely been reported, but I kind of put all that together, put it on a package for our people here at Inside Nebraska, put that on the site. There was no mention whatsoever that, hey, in a couple of days, we're going to be coming to Lincoln for like a boys trip. And we're going to go see Uncle Donnie and go to the basketball game. Like that wasn't a thing. So I honestly think what happened, and this was not like all of us got scooped and all of this stuff, and we just don't know what we're doing. I think that they were trying to keep that under wraps. To be honest, I don't think that while obviously there's going to be a big level of fanfare that comes along with every step of the way with this recruitment, and every move Dylan makes, there's a huge thing about it, right? And I totally understand it. It's justified. But I do think that at some level, they want to be able to keep a little bit of that stuff under wraps, and they don't want to always fuel that fire, right? Now, once he got here, it was a spectacle, like, as you can expect. Like, I don't know what it has to feel like to be a kid going into your senior year of high school and you walk into an arena and there's a student section chanting your name and like they're wanting you to wave and people are giving you fist bumps and taking pictures with you. And then he threw the bones and like kind of egged the crowd on, which is great. And I know that, just kind of talking to people in the know in that recruitment, like he had a good time, like kind of seeing all of that and felt really special, as one should, during all of that. But that's what it was. It was kind of a spectacle. Now, the rules say that he cannot meet with anyone from the coaching staff outside of his uncle who's on the coaching staff, because it's his uncle. So they couldn't like make a formal pitch, but it is a big deal that he came and did that. They could have done any number of things with their weekend, but they chose to come to Nebraska with him and with Dayton as well and kind of sit courtside. So it's a big deal that it happened, kind of as a table setter for his big unofficial visit later next month.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see Husker Nation sort of roll out the red carpet for him, since the coaching staff couldn't do that, since obviously he couldn't have contact with the coaches. And maybe this is a bad comparison because these recruitments didn't pan out well, but it's almost reminiscent in the past of when they had big recruits, like I think Brendan Radley Hiles Bookie at the spring game. Mm-hmm. He sort of became a celebrity, or I think they brought Micah Parsons down to Friday Night Lights, and there was a big crowd there for the Friday Night Lights, but they were kind of helping recruit Micah Parsons. But obviously this one just seemed to blow those out of the water with the love and attention he got. But yeah, it's interesting, and it feels like Nebraska's got a little momentum right now for the time being. But we don't have any Q&A today, Greg, so that's all I got for you if you have any closing thoughts. Otherwise, we can wrap this one out.
Yeah, it's good to be back. And again, welcome for you. Welcome back to the good life as well. And even itching to get back to Lincoln. I'm happy to be home. Like vacation's always fun, but I do love what we do here. So I'm glad to be back. Thank you to everybody who's been watching these videos and commenting. Make sure you do that again. Like the video up. Also subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get the videos directly in your feed. Also catch us over at Inside Nebraska, nebraska.rivals.com. We will catch you guys next time.